Now, multivitamin, you recall, is just one vitamin that has a whole lot of nutrients in it. Okay, they just kind of piled it all into one supplement. All right, discuss in terms of daily products. Okay, well, in theory, basically, over time, the nutrients in our soil have been somewhat depleted, and so we get kind of lower quality nutrients now in general from our plants or veggies that we're eating, because really the minerals have been sort of depleted or used out. If it's a commercially grown produce or something, the plant may look good, but it may not actually contain the nutrients that it may have at one time. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's why it's probably better to think in terms of maybe, if you have a choice, choose some organic produce, because a lot of times they've ensured that the soil is much richer and tends to be grown without a lot of artificial chemicals. Because a lot of times the artificial chemicals or fertilizers that they use tend to make the plant grow fast and look good, but it doesn't really contain the nutrients in it, okay, that you would hope to get. All right. So I firmly believe if your body, if you give it the right tools, it's going to do a lot better. Okay, so that's kind of the approach. Unfortunately, we are loading up on junk food, as you know. According to the CDC, less than 1/3 of Americans eat 2 or more fruits per day, and a mere 27% eat vegetables 3 or more times a day. So not too many people are eating very healthy. Okay. All right, so what does the research show? Well, the Archives of Internal Medicine did a study, and they said, well, this study shows an increase in mortality rate. People were dying if they were using food supplements. But they really didn't provide much information about the nutritional status or what they were using. I would say, I would really question that study in terms of how valid is that conclusion. Okay. But there are other studies. For example, in 2006, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality reviewed multiple studies. So they really looked at a lot of different studies, and they concluded that multivitamins can help prevent cancer and advanced age macular degeneration, a problem with the eye, in people with poor or suboptimal nutritional status. And so really it's saying that multivitamins might be a good idea to help prevent some problems. Okay, you're just better nutritional status. And so there was one interesting study where there was 300 healthy children from 7 to 10.5 years of age, and they divided them up into 3 groups, and they gave them all a chocolate malt drink. And in one group, they fortified it with 19 vitamins and minerals, and they wanted to see how the group that had the vitamins fared in terms of their test results, their nutritional status, at the end of about 8 weeks, I think it was. And so basically, after 120 days, okay, so it's 3 months, they tested endurance and aerobic capacity using a 20-meter shuttle test and a step test and a 40-meter sprint and visual reaction time, maximal hand grip, and forearm static endurance. And they found that at the end of the study that the children that had the additional vitamins in their drink had significant improvement in their aerobic capacity and endurance compared to those kids who didn't get the vitamins in their drink. And they found that the children that had the nutrients were significantly improved in their status on like the iron and various other nutrients in their system was better. So the markers of nutrition were better. Okay. So I thought that was rather interesting. So that was published in 2011. So, research findings have shown, for example, in 2002, that the too little intake of vitamins and nutrients, although it's not a true vitamin deficiency, you're not showing real signs of deficiency, people were still at an increased risk of chronic diseases, especially in the elderly. Okay, so as real young children and the real older people have a lot of trouble trying to get the nutrients they need because their systems are just not capable of absorbing the nutrients. And so those in particular are more vulnerable, and they probably need to be sure and take some nutritional supplements that help them. Okay. So the conclusion was most people do not consume an optimal amount of vitamins in diet alone. Pending strong evidence of effectiveness from randomized trials, it appears prudent for all adults to take vitamin supplements. So this is from the Centers for Disease Control that Vitamin Research Products looked at. So let's talk a little bit about vitamins. Now, you know, researchers don't use rats anymore for research. I don't know if you knew that. They use politicians. And so there's two reasons why they do that now. The researchers don't get as attached to the politician as they did the rat. And the second reason, there's some things not even a rat will do. So, all right.
Go cow.
Vitamins, minerals, and nutrients are best consumed as food. So that's an underlying principle. In other words, if you can get your nutrients in food, you're better off. Because remember, nutrition is very complex. It's a balancing act, really. I mean, you can load up on one nutrient and really kind of harm yourself because you're interfering with your body's ability to absorb other nutrients. Okay? Does that make sense? So it's sort of a balancing act here. And there's a lot we don't know. Okay? So food supplements really attempt to concentrate, you know, one or more nutrients to kind of help you. And they also kind of compete against one another. For example, you've probably known this, but calcium and magnesium compete for absorption in the body. For example, the more calcium, if you're trying to load up on your calcium, unfortunately it's interfering with your body's ability to absorb magnesium. Okay, so keep that in mind because obviously you don't want to be low in magnesium. Low magnesium is actually pretty common. People don't really get enough magnesium. Magnesium is involved in muscle relaxation. It's involved in energy production. It's involved in heart rhythm. So there's in nerve conduction. So there's a lot of things that magnesium does for you. In fact, magnesium is also involved in detoxification. You know, when the body's trying to get rid of toxins that build up in the body. So magnesium is very important. Okay, and so you don't want to just load up on a whole lot of calcium thinking you're going to strengthen your bones with that. Okay, so that's something to think about. But this is just an example of a typical vitamin label, food label when you pull up your vitamins at home and you look at it and it looks confusing to you and it's like, oh my goodness, what's that all about? Well, I think you'll be able to determine if a vitamin is a good quality vitamin or just looking at one or two ingredients in a list here. And I'll show you how for absorption in the body. For example, the more calcium, if you're trying to load up on your calcium, unfortunately it's interfering with your body's ability to absorb magnesium. So keep that in mind because obviously you don't want to be low in magnesium. Low magnesium is actually pretty common. People don't really get enough magnesium. Magnesium is involved in muscle relaxation. It's involved in energy production. It's involved in heart rhythm. So there's in nerve conduction. So there's a lot of things that magnesium does for you. In fact, magnesium is also involved in detoxification. You know, when the body's trying to get rid of toxins that build up in the body. So magnesium is very important, okay? And so you don't want to just load up on a whole lot of calcium thinking you're going to strengthen your bones with that, okay? So that's something to think about. There's a website I'm going to draw your attention to, multivitaminguide.org, and on the back of your handout I've given you a table that's derived from the information from that website. And basically what they came up with was a scoring. These are independent researchers that decided, oh, well, let's look at the major brand names out there and let's see how effective they are. And they came up with a 10-point scoring system. And the 10-point scoring system was made of 4 different things that they decided to look at. The composition, or what it was actually made of, that's 30% of the score. How available it is to the body in terms of what type of combination of ingredients they're using, the quality, that's part of the score. Synergistic effect, in other words, where things kind of helping one another in the way they put this vitamin together, okay? And then the potency, you know, how much of a concentration or how much of that ingredient is actually available in the vitamin. Now, that's one of my criticisms of one-a-day vitamin or Centrum is that they don't seem to have, they have complete A to zinc, they advertise, but you look at the amounts that's in there, it's such a tiny amount, it's like, okay, they got all the vitamins in there, but they didn't give you very much. They just gave you little tiny bits of each one. So anyway, that's the problem. But anyway, this score is based on, say, 1 to 10 or 0 to 10 on a scale. And so they rated all these vitamins, and so that's what that table is on the left. where they actually took the brand, the multivitamin, and rated how effective it was. So you can look at that number and say, okay, that they're recommending, these researchers are recommending 8 and above is an acceptable score. I would say, I'd be a little more generous and say probably 7 and above is a good score. If your vitamins rank 7 and above, I think you're doing really good, okay? That's the rankings that we have given you on the back of the handout. So let's talk a little bit about toxicity. People always ask about, well, how toxic are vitamins? Well, we do know certain vitamins, for example, the old vitamin A, can be toxic because it can build up in your system. So most supplements nowadays don't actually have vitamin A in it. They have retinol, or they have beta-carotene in it that's a precursor to vitamin A. So the body can actually form vitamin A from that, but it's much safer in the sense that they give you beta-carotene. Let's talk a little bit about toxicity. People always ask about, well, how toxic are vitamins? So what are the statistics? Well, 2004, the U.S. reports vitamin overdose exposures, 62,000 reports, basically, individuals. Most of them are children less than 6 years of age, leading to 53 major life-threatening conditions, 3 deaths, 2 from vitamins and vitamin D and vitamin E, 1 from really taking a multi-vitamin formula with iron. So I say it's pretty rare, even though there's some adverse reports or adverse reactions reported every year. Compared to 19,250 who died of unintentional poisoning of Alzheimer's in the U.S., so it's actual poisoning. That's a lot of deaths for that. And then 2009, there's 4.6 million drug-related visits to the ER, and more than half were adverse reactions to prescription medication, of which were being taken exactly as prescribed. So you kind of see the difference between the adverse reaction to vitamin versus what you see in the drug or medical field. Does that make sense? And so in 2010, there were 71,000 reported exposures to various vitamin formulations, which resulted in 15 major reactions and no death. So that's more typical in terms of the statistics that you see. And they're really considered pretty safe and helping to prevent deficiencies. So multivitamins is probably a good idea. The toxicity is pretty low. At least the risk of you getting toxic is pretty low. And just check with your doctor about that. So hopefully you look like this Pittsburgh Doughboy at the end of 90 days. Thanks for your attention.